Chairman, move we go back into open session.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we go back into open session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now back into open session. I will now poll members to certify that to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and is identified in the motion for which the meeting was convened were discussed and considered by the board. If any member believes that the board varied from the purposes stated for the closed meeting, please state so and the reason prior to casting a vote. Mr. McCotter. Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barlow.
Yes.
Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Woodward.
Yes.
All right, we're back into open session. This is the Monday, June 2nd, 2025 meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors. I'd like to welcome those of you who are attending in the public meeting room and those who are watching online. We will start tonight's meeting, as we always do, with the invocation by Mr. Williams tonight, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join us, please stand.
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to come here this evening. We're thankful that you've provided us with the opportunity to have a mind that we're able to do things that are good for our community, Father. Father, be with this meeting here tonight. Thank those who protect us here locally and afar. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Two changes. Number one, under information discussion, we'd like to have a future revenues presentation that's going to get made. And under the consent agenda, number one, it talks about a resolution safeguarding public health through water and wastewater service management. We'd like to add and wastewater to that, sir.
Is that a motion?
It is.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adopt the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the bills.
So move. Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the bills. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
So move. Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All,
I have one
Mr. Barlow.
question. Mr. Goodwin, on number 4, I believe it is, yeah, does that, the pass-through go directly back to Bumpus Fire Department?
It would go back to whoever's holding the policy, so yes, sir, I believe that'd be the case.
Good enough.
and any other
Wait, go ahead.
discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is our recognitions. We do have recognitions tonight. The first is a resolution recognizing Scott McClary as the Louisa County Public Schools 2025 Wallace L. Tingler MVP of the Year. Mr. McClary, if you'll come down.
Mr. Larry up. Anyone you'd like to bring with you, we'll have you stand right up front and face the audience. Please come. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, members of the public, this is a resolution recognizing Scott McClary as the Louisa County Public Schools 2025 Wallace L. Tingler MVP of the Year. Whereas Louisa County Public Schools is committed to celebrating individuals who go above and beyond in service, dedication, and making meaningful connections that positively impact students, staff, and the school community. And whereas Scott McClary, technology specialist at Louisa County Middle School, has served LCPS with distinction for 13 years, demonstrating steadfast commitment, expertise, and positivity in every role he undertakes. And whereas Mr. McClary is a proud 2009 graduate of Louisa County High School, and his continued service to the school division exemplifies his strong ties and his dedication to his hometown and alma mater. And whereas Mr. McClary is widely known for offering service with a smile and consistently showing up with a positive attitude, uplifting those around him and fostering an atmosphere of respect, warmth, and encouragement. And whereas Mr. McCleary firmly believes in the power of personal connections, recognizing that building genuine relationships with students and colleagues is fundamental to a thriving educational environment, and that success is rooted in kindness, empathy, and positivity. And whereas Mr. McCleary's impact is felt not only through his technical support and day-to-day contributions, but also through the compassion and the care he demonstrates, which has earned him the admiration of students, faculty, and the broader LCPS community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Louisiana County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes and commends Scott McCleary for his exceptional contributions to the Louisiana County Public Schools and congratulates him on being selected as the 2025 Wallace L. Tingler MVP of the Year. Congratulations, sir. Supervisor Jones, I would ask that you present this.
We're a smile every day that I see you, and whenever I call for you and I say, hey, my phone's not working, or my computer, you are there with a smile, immediately responding. And thank you, and I know it's not just me, it's the entire middle school that feels that way. Thank you for everything you've done.
Thank you.
Let's turn this around.
Next is a resolution recognizing Shane Robertson as the Louisiana County Public Schools 2025 William G. Thomas Educator of the Year.
Oh.
I was going to say, they got all dressed up. You got to get them
They
down here
look
for a picture.
sharp.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public, this is a resolution recognizing Shane Robertson as the Louisiana County Public Schools 2025 William G. Thomas Educator of the Year. Whereas the William G. Thomas Educator of the Year for Louisiana County Public Schools is recognized for excellence in teaching and outstanding academic contributions to the county's school-aged children. And whereas Louisiana County Public Schools takes pride in honoring educators who exemplify excellence in teaching, community involvement, and unwavering dedication to student success. And whereas Shane Robertson, automotive technology teacher at Louisiana County High School, has devoted the past 7 years to educating and empowering students through hands-on learning, career readiness, and community engagement. And whereas Mr. Robertson is a proud 2010 graduate of Louisiana County High School, and his return to the division as an educator is a testament to his loyalty, pride, and commitment to giving back to the school that helped to shape him. And whereas Mr. Robertson is a two-time recipient of the Louisiana County High School Educator of the Year Award, 2022 and 2025, a distinction that reflects the consistent impact he makes on students, staff, and the broader school community. And whereas Mr. Robertson leads his students beyond the classroom by partnering with local nonprofit organization Giving Words, where his students help refurbish vehicles for local mothers in need of reliable transportation, and instilling in them the value of service, compassion, and real-world responsibility. And whereas he is well known for his selflessness, positivity, and can-do attitude, always ready to lend a hand and serve others both in and out of the classroom. Now therefore be it resolved that the Louisiana County Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes and commends Shane Robertson for his exceptional achievements and contributions to Louisiana County Public Schools and congratulates him on being named the 2025 William G. Thomas Educator of the Year. Congratulations. Thank you for what you do. Mr. Chairman, I would ask you to present this.
Are you guys proud of Dad? I think Mom's proud of Dad too. But we're proud of you too. Congratulations. Thank you for what you do for Louisiana County Public Schools and for our students.
Thank you.
And we'll get a picture right over there. So I see Mr. Straley's here, and
Miss Harper. Harper.
Yes, thank you. Why don't you all come up and everybody, we'll get a picture with everybody up here since. Congratulations.
Yeah.
We'll get all of you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Well, again, congratulations to all of you, and thank you for what you do for our students. Now we're on to public comment. I don't have any cards. Is there anyone here that would wish to address the board? Bye. Bye, boys. Bye. So now we'll move on to information and discussion items. Under information discussion items, we will have a presentation from on future revenues from our staff and from our future our revenue committee.
I think, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Jones and Supervisor Woodward, who represented the board on this committee, would like, before we start, to just say a few words. So I'll turn it over to them first, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm excited about this presentation tonight. This is an accumulation of the past 6 months of work, and our primary mission has been to take care of the citizens of Louisa County. As everyone is aware, our revenue forecasts indicate that the county is going to be receiving significant revenue starting at the end of this decade and moving into their 2030s. The Revenue Committee's goal has been to create that framework that will prioritize these funds, and we want these funds to go directly back to our citizens and to support them. The new funding will also ensure that we can focus on our cash funding, our efforts for the future. We can reduce our reliance on debt and lower our associated costs. And finally, this is a working document. So this document is just recommendations at this point. We think that public input is important, and we encourage everyone to let us know what you think about this so we can tailor these funds accordingly to how our citizens want them.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start with saying how grateful and to thank Chairman Adams and the other board members that have shared with us through these last 6 months. Also, staff has played a tremendous role in helping us create what's going to be presented tonight. So I would like to thank Mr. Goodwin, Mrs. Colvin, excuse me, Chris Kuhn, and Andy Wade for just a tremendous amount of help in creating this. So, and as Rachel says, we want this money to directly support our citizens. And we also know that making priorities early is the best way to ensure that this happens. This funding will support efforts that we haven't been able to consider in the past due to physical constraints. We also want to be sure that these new revenues are the only dollars supporting these new efforts. Probably, we hear quite a bit from our constituents and other folks in the county. And the data centers that are key to this new revenue, there's no doubt that some in the county don't agree that we need them at all. But to that end, part of the responsibility of responsibly planning the use of these funds is making sure that Louisa County doesn't need endless data centers to finance these needs. The TODs, the Technology Overlay District acreage, represents just a really small part, or just a fraction, of the county's 514 square miles. That level of tight control is as important to us as it is to every other citizen. Finishing up with my comments, I would like to kind of highlight a couple of things and reemphasize those that Rachel said. One of those is on the cash funding. And, it's the kind of words that at least I don't use every day, but we really think, Rachel and myself and staff, that it's really important that as this money starts to come in, that we use a good portion of that money as our debts come due and we're able to pay them, that this is going to support us paying those off, which as a taxpayer, I think that's a tremendous thing that this revenue that's going to be coming in will help us do. Also, hopefully we'll be able to fund, if we need to build a new school, we won't have to borrow the money for that anymore. We'll be able to pay that ourselves and not have that debt. And I just think that's a really conservative, good way to run any type of a government, if you're able to do that. And we truly believe that this is going to allow us to do that. Also, as Rachel said so well, public input is really important, and we really do want to hear. This is by no means a finished project, and we certainly want to hear from the public what their thoughts are. So thank y'all very much.
Chairman, members of the board, as Mrs. Jones and Mr. Woodward just stated, the Revenue Work Group has been working hard these last few months, kind of analyzing what we anticipate to be future revenues. So as you can see on our slide, some of the new revenue sources we've identified are the Amazon Web Services. Hopefully we'll be getting real estate revenues and personal property tax revenues off of those. Our assumptions were conservative. We used 25 data centers as the basis for our assumptions that you'll see later on. Also, Dominion has talked about modular reactors, and with those would come Public Service Corp real estate and personal property tax revenues. Our assumptions used one modular reactor just to show those numbers. There's also potential other sources. There could be other sources that are unknown, but the formulas and the plan that we're going to lay out will spread those monies as well. Some considerations for the funding. New revenues would be available to fund capital projects that are considered necessary in our current 20-year plan. So when the costs are above our operating surpluses, this would allow funding to cover some of the differences there. Also, we could potentially see a reduction in our local composite index for the schools, which would mean less state revenues as we go, because that local composite index is the formula the state uses to determine the portion that they pay for the schools, and it's the ability for the county to pay. So as we have more revenues, our ability to pay is going to be a little higher, so that state revenue may come in a little less. And then another thing to consider would be payoff of our Virginia Resource Authority loans, which are non-education loans. The school loans we can't pay off, but the VRA loans do have a call on them at 10-year increments, so that would be an option to pay those off as well. And then some of the potential future uses that the group has come up with would be tax rebates or reductions, the planned capital, which I already mentioned, some road projects, recreation projects, public safety and judicial facilities, airport upgrades such as a runway extension or the terminal building that are things that are needed out there. Rural preservation has been discussed, water, sewer, utility infrastructure for upgrades or maintenance or new facilities, HAB mitigation for Lake Anna, litter mitigation throughout the county, and then reserves for our general fund and long-term capital, so as things rise that we do cash payments with. And I'm going to sit, if you don't mind.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you, Ms. Colvin, and I want to echo Wanda's thanks, everybody's thanks really, for Supervisor Jones and Supervisor Woodward's diligent work on this over the past 6 months. This has been an exciting project and one that I think will be impactful for the county. So what your committee has recommended to you is coming up with committed allocations. And this would be a similar approach to how we use transient occupancy tax funding, where the board kind of attempts to agree in advance on allocations for every dollar that would come in. And the nice thing about using an allocation basis with percentages is it kind of happens independently of how much money flows in any given year. Just a percentage of every dollar would go towards those allocations, and the board would set those allocations based on priorities, as Supervisor Woodward said, that you all have you would set those percentages, and they would generate the allocation based on whatever number of dollars came in any given year. So again, we develop those allocations in advance. It allows us to commit those revenues as they come in, and it would be handled in a way that would maybe evoke some similarity to how the NAPS fund is handled. These funds would show up as committed, not restricted, but committed on the balance sheet in separate lines. And the board has treated the NAPS fund very carefully over the years, and I think it would be the hope of the committee that these new revenues would be treated similarly. So these are the initial allocations that the committee recommended for you all's consideration. And again, I just want to stress that as we run through these numbers, these are allocations based on the priorities that the board has identified today, or that the public has talked about today. These are not going to be chiseled in stone. The board could change the allocations at any time, but what it does do is it commits funds as they come in. When things come up, we say, all right, well, we have allocations. Does this fit within one of the allocations that we have, or do we need to create a new priority for funding? And so I'll just run down through them briefly. We've certainly been a lot of interest and a lot of discussion about tax rebates or tax reductions. An allocation of 5%, 5 cents of every dollar could go into that bucket, if you will. Almost 25%, almost a quarter of every new dollar allocated for planned capital projects. And that's something right now that a part of our operating surplus goes towards every year. The board members who were on the committee brought up the example of school funding, which is traditionally something that this county has done with debt, and being able to do that with cash going forward. Road projects, another 17% could go into that. Right now, just to give an example, most of the large construction projects in Central Virginia are governed by the state's smart scale funding process. And one of the critical scoring parts of the scoring matrix for smart scale is the benefit that a locality brings to the project itself. So if it's a $15 million roundabout project and the locality were to bring $5 million to the table in that smart scale application process, then that project may score that much higher. Or the locality we might be able to undertake a locally administered project completely on our own. So 17% of every dollar going towards that. Another 15% going towards rural preservation. That's being talked about right now. We've heard the presentation and had the discussion about some of the options that we could do there, whether it's purchasing development rights or other efforts that we can do to maintain the rural nature of the county or preserve open space. Another 10% each for both public safety or judicial facilities and recreation projects, something that there's clearly some opportunity for some future expenditures in those areas. Another 9% specifically for infrastructure, water, sewer, or utilities. Another nearly 4.5% for HAB mitigation until that issue is handled out at the lake. Another 3% for airport upgrades, 1% each for reserves in both the general fund and the long-term capital fund, and 0.1% for litter mitigation, which is an issue that the public has routinely brought up that the board would like to see addressed as we move forward. So these percentages are going to be on the next slide, and we're going to accompany those percentages with some actual dollars. And still a little bit of a question mark as to how much money would flow in any given year. And again, that's the importance of having an allocation table based on percentages. So the way that we're presenting this is with an estimate in FY31 of roughly $36.5 million worth of new money. And you can see the percentages in the center column there beside each one of the initiatives and the amounts that each one of those allocation percentages would dictate from the new money for each one of those initiatives. So, roughly $9 million available to go towards planned capital projects, another $6.2 million toward road projects. And for example there, Smart Scale is funded on a 2-year basis. So you would have 2 years worth of funding by the time that, with the 2 years worth of funding, if those numbers held, and it was $36 million and you kept this allocation, you would have almost $12.5 million available to go towards a Smart Scale project or even a locally administered project if you waited 2 years. So anyway, I won't go through and read all the numbers. It's not an exhaustive list. But again, I applaud the Revenue Committee and I applaud the whole board for wanting to take these priorities and overlay them on the potential for new revenue and to make a plan and to solicit public input well in advance of these new dollars coming in their efforts to use these funds to most directly benefit the citizens. So I'll stop there. I'll turn it over to you for any questions, discussions, statements. Wanda, I can, yeah, please. I don't want to make you walk like that. So I'll call on you whenever I can't answer something, which might be early. So.
Any questions? Ms. Brown?
Yeah, I would again reiterate applauding the committee and everybody else that helped put this together. I think, it's going to take some studying on this and probably some public input and that type of thing before we actually come up with a final plan. But this is a great step forward, and maybe we can finally get some of this stuff paid off.
Great.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Barnes?
I certainly want to
Use
thank.
your microphone, sir.
I certainly want to thank Ms. Jones and Mr. Woodward for working on this, as well as Christian and Wanda. But it's like anything else, and I'm glad that both supervisors are working document and moving forward, look at it. But I don't want us to lose sight of the need for affordable housing. And somewhere along the line, I talked to the chairman about coming up with the next board meeting, talking about a housing trust and how we can try to help those that live here now, teachers, doctors, not doctors, teachers, firefighters, just people that grew up in Louisa to become homeowners. And it's not just about owning homes. We may look at other areas where you can get housing. But I certainly want to make sure that we put in a little line item for affordable housing, because that's something that's near and dear and very important moving forward.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Woodward and I we had that discussion, and we were talking about it as we were working through this, and we were thinking that moving forward, the next two supervisors that come on can maybe dig into that a little bit deeper and try to figure out where we can put that into the equation too. It definitely was, it is important that we look at that and we try to evaluate that and make some considerations.
But I want to thank both of you all, because it's a really good format to get started with.
Anyone else? A couple things I'd like to mention. First of all, echo what has been said to Supervisor Jones and Supervisor Woodward and to the staff. Thank you. This is a really good, solid foundation, I think, for us to continue this discussion. And a couple points I'd like to make. I was real curious, because you guys have kept this under pretty close wraps, so I was curious to see how the funding mechanism would work. And I think that by doing it by a percentage allocation, because the revenue will change year to year. And a lot of times it'll go up. I don't ever think it will go dramatically down, but it may fluctuate by some percentage points. So I think that by tying it to percentages, whether we leave these initiatives or we change them or add something to it, I think that's a solid financial basis for the board to work with as we start to evaluate a budget. I do think that we're hitting on some really important things. I know that I'm sure Mr. Barlow was very happy to hear about paying off some of the debt that we have out of this. The road projects, a couple meetings ago when Mr. Thornton was here from VDOT, we actually had a conversation. How can our county score higher in SMART scale? And he gave the answer I think that we all probably thought he would give, more of a local match. And there are lots of infrastructure programs throughout the years that have not gotten done in this county because we didn't have the funding to make those matches. The rural preservation, I don't think we could be any more timely with that. I would point out, the airport upgrades. The 3% based on this number is about $1.1 million. The interesting thing about airport upgrades is between the federal and state matches that you get, that's about the best investment that you can make, because that $1.1 million would literally unlock tens of millions of dollars in federal and state grant money. And I know that we're expecting a report on upgraded economic impact to the county from the airport. And I think that's an area where we can see continued economic development. I don't think anybody thought 5 years ago we would be sitting here talking about how we would potentially invest in a county $34 million in additional tax revenue. And as we see this number start to come into fruition, I think it's important that we understand that we have to be good stewards of this money. And I think this is a very solid beginning. If the board doesn't have an objection, when we first set this committee up in January, the initial thought was we would have 2 supervisors for 6 months and then 2 supervisors for another 6 months. But based on the thoroughness of this report, what I would like to suggest is that I will appoint 2 more supervisors for 2 months, and then 2 more after that for 2 months. That will roll us through to about November, and get everybody's input. And unless there's any objection, I'll reach out to you all over the next few days to see who's interested. I know, Mr. McCotter, you've expressed an interest. But so that we can continue to move on this fairly quickly. Is there any objection to that?
No, that's
right.
the plan.
I would like to make a comment, though, with your permission,
Sure.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman. I would like to also thank Rachel and Manning, supervisors, as well as staff, because and Chairman Adams, as well as Supervisor Williams, and bringing 2 other supervisors into this process, whether you want to call it, forecasting of revenues, future revenue analysis, or just expanding the table with the budget process. I think that's healthy. And I think it's important that the citizens see that, and I want to thank each one of you for stepping up and doing that. I'm very happy to see that there could be some HAB funding. Who knows what the future brings, but I think that is long-term wise. We can talk about it later in a committee report. And I think one of the things that we have lacked very sorely until somewhat recently is the ability to make a difference with our roads in this county, which are vastly behind the times. As the county continues to grow, our roads need to grow with them, and they haven't in a long time, except in very certain areas where literally, tragedies moved the projects forward. So I think that is wise to try and get the smart scale programs augmented with funding. So I'm just going to cross my fingers that Amazon comes through and we will have $36 million in a few years. Thank you.
Thank anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Thank you, Ms. Colvin. And again, Supervisor Jones, Supervisor Woodward, thank you. Next is a discussion of proposal request from the Louisa County Planning Commission. Mr. Coon?
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. What you have on packet page 38 is a request from the Planning Commission to conduct a countywide analysis of by right development potential. Another name for that is a build-out analysis. That is something that actually Albemarle County just conducted recently with their comp plan update. It has taken them about 2 years to get to it, so this is a very in-depth endeavor. They engaged with Kimley Horn to do this. So this is a request that they made, and just its staff's standpoint, I think it's a significant time commitment that we would be unable to do ourselves, but we also may want to look at the timeline to account for the comp plan amendment that we're planning on doing here shortly, and maybe this might be something we should do either during or after that.
Thank you, Mr. Coon. If the board doesn't have any objection, this has come up in the last 2 discussions. The comp plan and also the rural preservation program that we're working on to implement. I appreciate the Planning Commission's recommendation. I know this would have to be done by a third party, with a pretty healthy price tag. And I think this should be something that we take under consideration and not take any action this evening as we see how we move through the comp plan update and the rural preservation program. So unless anybody has any objection, we'll take the recommendation and move forward.
I would certainly agree with that, and not doing anything as we're getting ready to go into these comp plan studies and stuff right now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Well, I guess you're still here. Update on the comprehensive plan review.
Yes, sir. And speaking about the comp plan, the tentative timeline that we have right now is we are finalizing some surveys for public outreach. And the plan is come July, we like to push those surveys out to the public, try and get them, fill it out. The idea here is we would have several smaller surveys focusing around public safety. We'd have some for schools and public facilities, some ag and forestal preservation, or at least the growth into the future. So we have a couple different smaller sections, and then we try and get with the major stakeholders to help share that information so we can get that out there. And then once we collect those throughout the summer and can help give us some direction on bringing that information together, we plan on having some town halls. Right now, when we did the comp plan update last time, we had a town hall at each district, so we were planning on doing that again. So that is something that, as long as you all are interested, we can try and start scheduling that and get these places locked down. So as we start with citizen engagement, we can share the dates and times of those items. And ultimately, the plan is we would like to come back to the board with at least a review of what we've got between the surveys and what we've dealt with by January. So that would allow us to get feedback from the board and then either correct it or move forward with a public hearing. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward on this within 6 months. Now stand ready to answer any questions.
Any questions from Mr. Kuhn?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just your timeline. You're going to put the surveys out around July. When do you think we'll be doing the meetings in the community?
We would probably, earliest would be September. I'd
Okay.
say once school starts and vacations are over, so people are actually back in the
Okay, yeah,
community.
you did say that.
So
Okay,
that way
I
the
just,
survey,
because then I heard January, so it's just,
well, and then we're looking at probably having 2 town halls a month. We might be able
Gotcha.
to do more, but
yeah.
between having 2 board meetings and then maybe
Yeah,
2
that's a
town
lot.
halls, that,
Okay.
yes.
Anything else? Well, I would just add, I'm very excited about taking the government to the people. When we did this in 2019, I know in Mineral, we had about 150 people come through the fire department when we did the comp plan update then. So I think that's a great way to solicit input from our citizens. And I think the survey, which I assume will be advertised through all of our normal social media channels and that sort of thing, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Update on short-term rental compliance. Mr. Kuhn, you're just earning your money tonight.
Yes, sir. So to update the board, we had sent a short-term rental requirements reminder to all short-term rental operators that had registered with Louisa County for it's a requirement of the R1 and R2 districts, but we have had some in the ag properties as well fill out the contact information that we shared with them. Essentially, it was just saying, hey, we're getting ready for the busy season. Make sure you abide by these rules and regulations, and we shared a copy of those rules and regulations. One of the other items that we do have is we've now started reaching out to the sheriff's office and requested a monthly log of calls for service that pertain to short-term rentals. Requested May's actually this morning, and over the month of May, we only had 3 properties that were short-term rentals that also had calls for service for noise complaints, and all of those were, it's the same day. It was, as early as 5 and as late as 2 a.m., but most of them had one call, and a couple hours later there was another one, but that resolved all the issues. But we plan on just tracking that to help make sure that if there's any gaps in the ordinance or something that needs to be discussed, we'll keep tabs on it, and we plan on sending letters to those individuals as well, just reminding them of the noise chapter that they're supposed to be sharing with their tenants. Stand ready to answer any questions.
So, as a follow-up, and I see Mr. and Mrs. Bagby are here. We had a meeting about a week and a half ago with some folks from the lake, and we got a follow-up from Mrs. Coe. Question I had for you, and I think you've answered it for me, but I want to make sure. So the letters, who did they go to? Did they go to the owner of the short-term rental, or did they go to the manager or the management company, or was it whoever we had on file who?
It was whoever we had on file that filled out the report. So if they are the representing agent, there was a couple that were some management companies, but the vast majority of them were individuals. I can't speak to if they were owners or operators, but
Right.
they were individuals. There's very few management companies that I'm aware of.
Well, and then the other thing I'd like to point out that, especially with the noise violations, I want to thank the Sheriff's Department because it's my understanding that they have to manually pull that report for us at the end of every month. So hopefully it's an easy task because hopefully we don't get that many calls for service. But, I mean, we did ask them to do that and they agreed to do that. So I want to publicly thank them for their cooperation.
Yes, sir.
And we're just starting. Memorial Day was just here, so, the next 60 to 70 days is going to be the busy time for short-term rentals across, not just at the lake. Obviously, there are a lot at the lake, but I believe we have other places in the county, for example, Shenandoah Crossings. My understanding is Shenandoah Crossings has about 100,000 visitors a year. A lot of those are short-term rentals of the cabins they have there, or campers, or things like that, and also at the campground, Christopher Run Campground, and that sort of thing. So this encompasses, will this noise ordinance complaints encompass all of those places?
Where staff plans to send letters, it would not encompass those because they're also zoned higher and for more commercial use. So for example, Christopher Run also have got some, which that's probably one campground to another campground where the call came from, but they wouldn't receive a letter regarding a short-term rental ordinance because that's
No,
an
but
active
would
campground.
we get the calls for service from the Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I have the full list.
Okay.
And then I take the list and figure out which ones are short-term rentals based on our records.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kuhn, Will, I really like what y'all have come up with. What will this do as far as staffing? Are we going to have any problem with it overworking our folks, or?
So right now, what I have is essentially the reminder letter, and then we've got one that is a very specific complaint that we get on individuals that are complaining about the VDH permit plus the occupancy that's being advertised. So there's a letter that we share with that, basically indicating that they may want to look at their practices and their VDH permit, and it's been forwarded to VDH just for their knowledge. So I've got a form letter there, so we'll just need to input the address and get the owner's contact, which we have on file. And then this other one for noise, I've got a template letter as well. So really it's just filling in the address and the contact individual. So it's not something that's very time consuming. I mean, these 6 letters took me a very short amount of time today.
How about if it gets to the point where we've got to go further with it? And, the police going out, it's not doing it, letters aren't doing it. My concern, when this came up and I was on the planning commission, and, the regulations, the rules that were come up with and then turned down were much stricter, much stricter than what this is. This way, we're depending a lot more on the Sheriff's Department and their reports versus a staff member having to actually go out when there's a complaint. So, I do like what y'all have come up with. To me, it makes a lot of sense, and is reasonable. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman. The chairman brought up Shenandoah Crossings with short-term rentals. Now, they're under resort zoning, correct? They're not considered short-term rentals, those cabins, because they're part of the resort, no?
There's some blended lines with short-term rentals.
Gotcha.
It's because of transient occupancy. So
Gotcha.
with the campgrounds and things like that, they still pay transient occupancy.
Yeah.
So they do register. So to be safe, there are several entities that for example, the A1 and A2 properties that are allowed by right to do short-term rentals, they've filled it out just because
Just to
for
make it
them,
permanent.
it's easier to do it. And, they've done it if they needed to, and if they don't,
That makes sense.
it's just a contact information, so it doesn't impede them at all. So no, they would not be in the same category as what we're talking about with this.
Okay. I was just
And
wondering.
we do plan on September, probably after Labor Day, once the season starts dying down, to try and do a full report. Now that we've been tracking it, we have a full season of, what it ends up looking like. So May, we had 6 calls on 3 properties, and we'll run that the rest of the year to try and indicate what impact we're seeing.
But if we have a short-term rental that's found to be out of compliance with our code, then we can stop them from short-term renting, and they would have to go before the planning commission and the board for a CUP. Is that not correct?
Yes, the staff would get to a certain point that we would have to bring a particular property to the Board of Supervisors for some governmental action and change their by right with restrictions status.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kuhn, is that in the original STR agreement that the STR owners signed, that the CUP could possibly become a option for them should they continue to be out of compliance?
Yes, sir. So it actually goes in 86-114, which is a short-term rental of a dwelling. Item 6 says owners unable to meet all of the above requirements shall be prohibited from operating a short-term rental of a dwelling without obtaining a conditional use permit from Louisa County Board of Supervisors.
So worst case scenario, that's what happens, and they sign an agreement agreeing to that condition.
Well, that is
It's
the
implied.
ordinance, so it's,
Yeah.
exactly. If they want to operate it, they need to
Within the
abide by the
ordinance,
rules.
that's an ordinance.
Yes,
I
sir.
understand. Well, I hope that we're not throwing a grenade over the barricade and running back on this one, but I thank you for the work that you've done. I think it's a great first step.
Well, I don't know exactly, I'm not sure about that metaphor, but when you throw the grenade, run back at least and hide behind a tree. So,
Hide.
Poking a bear.
yeah. All right, thank you, Mr. Kuhn. Now we'll move on to, well, you're still here, new business action items, a resolution waiving fishing permit fees for Bowlers Mill Reservoir and authorizing reciprocal use by Northeast Creek Reservoir permit holders.
Yes, sir. This is a situation that Supervisor Woodward had brought to me. We have very few individuals that come and get these permits for Bowlers Mill. We have a lot of complaints. Most people that get the permit at Bowlers Mill also get the permit for Northeast Creek. Water Authority does manage Northeast Creek, so we can't give the reciprocal. If you have a Bowlers Mill, you can go to either. However, we can allow that if they have a permit with Northeast Creek, they go to Bowlers Mill, and if Water Authority provides a similar option, then we'll have it where if you have either permit, you can go to both locations. And this waives the permit and allows for our portion at least.
Didn't they have any questions? Yes.
I do.
So, who do you have to get a permit from to fish in Northeast Creek?
Water Authority.
Okay. So, how much is a fishing permit?
$10 at
And they're good,
Northeast Creek.
they're good for a year?
Year.
If you're a
It's
senior,
Well-
you get $2 off of that.
Why don't we talk to
I
the
think
Water
we all got the
Authority?
same
Water
thought
Authority's
process,
already
I think.
voted to approve waiving the fee
Okay.
and to work both.
Why don't we
Compact.
approve waiving fees and give free permits to people who reside in the county? Because that sounds like a reasonable thing to do on something that the county owns. Now, if you don't live in the county, that's a whole different thing.
I agree.
Let's issue one permit, and I don't care where it comes from, but I would move that we encourage the water department to waive the fees on all county residents. If you don't live in the county and want to fish here, pay the daggone fee.
Question for the county attorney. So, since the Water Authority manages
Ain't much.
Northeast Creek, the county owns it, is that correct, Mr. Goodwin? County owns Northeast Creek, correct?
No, Water Authority.
owns Northeast
Okay, so the Water Authority owns Northeast Creek, county owns Bowlers Mill.
Yes, sir.
Do we have the authority to waive the fee on
We're
something
asking them to
another
waive the
entity
fee.
owns?
No, we're just asking them to waive the fee.
But we could
Mr. Chairman.
waive it for both.
Yes.
Ms. Smith, were you at the Water Authority meeting when their board voted to allow people to get permits from, what we've tried to work, since the impounds are owned by two different entities, what we've tried to do is come up with a memorandum of understanding or whatever, that both entities will still issue permits, but they'll be for both impounds. So for here, it's the treasurer's office.
With no fees.
With no fees. For the water authority, it's at the water authority office.
So you can go there, get one for both places. You can come here, get one for both places.
That's right.
There's no fee.
So it'd be the same as what people
If
have
you,
always done.
if you live in Louisa.
Yeah, I don't know that it went that far. I think it just said the fees would be waived.
I'd like to
because-
put that caveat in
Well,
there.
and I don't have a problem with that. I think that their feeling is that almost everybody is a county resident.
Well, but
So-
that may not always be the case.
Mr. Goodwin.
Would the water authority, maybe just to make it simpler for everybody, would the water authority be acceptable to issuing the permits for both Bowlers Mill and
Absolutely, that's
Northeast?
what they voted on.
To do, not only to forego the revenue, but to do the permits
right.
for both as
That's
well?
right.
We don't do permits here, we send them down there.
Yeah, yeah.
Unless everybody wins. Well, we win more, but that's okay.
Did you have something, Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about a permit was issued on the Shannon Hill property. There's some pond on that. That property. So would it be all county-owned property? I don't know how many county-owned properties have ponds.
I think the difference, these people have to get a permit. The other people were getting permission to fish there. It was like hunting
Yeah.
on a piece of land.
You actually have to have a permit. They issue an actual permit to hunt,
Yes.
to fish.
They have to go to the treasurer's office right now and pay. There's town of Gordonsville has a certain fee. Louisa County residents have a fee, and then all others have a fee. There's 3 separate fees depending on where you reside.
I got a request for the Shannon Hill Business Park. There was a pond that came from the county, but somebody wanted to fish that. Did they have to get a permit?
They get permission from the
Permission.
county administrator.
But that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
No, so just
Good
Bowlers
enough.
Mill or
And the
Northeast
pond at
Creek.
Shannon Hill Business Park's no bigger than this room, so
I've never seen it. I
It's-
don't know how big it is.
I've seen it. It's clogged with
fishing
grass.
Had an alligator on it.
So,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Coon, how many are we talking about here? Or Mr. Woodward, how many permits are we talking about here?
I'm not sure numbers, but we're talking about $4,000 a year in income.
It's about 400 permits.
It's actually 2,700 between FY 19 and FY 25. We've averaged 2,700
Okay.
in permit fees, so.
Yeah.
Because the Bowlers Mill is less. I don't remember what I read that somewhere. Northeast Creek was $10, $2 less if you're a senior citizen.
And I think Bowlers Mill, it's like 250, 450,
A lot
and
cheaper. Yeah.
$5 or something.
I would waive all the fees and let
and
them handle the
is there a second?
permit.
I have just one question.
Second.
Did I hear something about Gordonsville?
In
That they-
Bowlers Mill, they have a discounted rate
I
for
didn't
town
even
of
realize that. I thought it
Gordonsville
was just you had to come to
residents.
Louisa.
They do have to come to the treasurer's office, but they do have a discounted rate
Oh,
from
okay, so they
others.
do come this way. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I second.
Okay. So the folks in the town of Gordonsville would still pay a fee because they're not Louisa County residents,
Well,
correct?
so that's, I was just gonna ask clarification. Are we waiving the fee and letting the water authority issue the permits because they waive to not charge a fee to anyone?
We just start with waiving the fee in general.
Just all fees.
It's not worth it.
I agree.
Yeah.
So do you amend your motion?
I didn't make it for Louisa. I just generic waived the
Okay.
fee.
All right.
I think I'm good on the motion, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I think
So
it was
money comes
interesting,
in
the
and we
entire
waive
board
fees.
had the same thought when that came up, but anyway. All right. Committee reports.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I brought this up to the board before. I just would kind of get some official action. I told the board about the young man who home caught a fire and now gonna do the demolition, that will waive the fee. I have his address, and I apologize to the supervisor whose district, the bus driver house that caught a fire.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
One man
Yeah,
township.
that was your.
And
sorry.
it's Oakland, it's Oakland Lane bumpers in Oakland too. Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Oakleigh.
Okay, Oakleigh, I'm sorry. But I just want to make sure that we bring it up in official capacity so we can
Make a motion.
authorize.
You make a motion?
I want to let the supervisor make a motion to disagree, but I just want to bring it up.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. I think the motion, and Mr. Supervisor Barnes can help me with that, is to waive some landfill fees associated with this individual
Demolition,
trying to start anew
Right.
after a tragedy.
right.
And I'd just like to give a shout out, because I believe this is the individual that the Louise S. Lavanna Housing Foundation is assisting with residents right now whose home burnt down.
I don't know about this, but this woman, the guy lost his life that was working with the outage. But I sent Chris Coons the address.
Second.
All right, then properly moved and seconded that we waive the fees on this demolition. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, do we have any other committee reports?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Lake Anna Advisory Committee met recently, fourth Thursday in May. 3 things I'd like to report. We heard from representatives of the Virginia Department of Health and Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. My request, I asked them to attend a meeting and give an update on just everything that they're doing on Lake Anna, which is quite a bit. The representatives reported that they are changing the protocol for testing the water at Lake Anna. They will no longer be using cell counts, but they will be using toxin counts when they test the water. That is the DEQ. The Department of Health is the entity, the state entity, which issues HAB advisories. The implication of this protocol change is that future advisories could be different, and different could be less toxins versus cell counts. Number 2 item, the Lake Anna Advisory Committee also agreed to work with Louisa County on issuing a request for bids to maintain the lake's hazard and bridge buoy system. It's over 70 buoys approximately. That job has outstripped the volunteer capabilities of LAC. We'll let you know more on that as that unfolds. We appreciate county help on that. We also agreed to issue an RFP on phosphorus remediation, which is what we did last year. There's $750,000 that have been earmarked by the General Assembly for this task at Lake Anna. So we agreed on a format to issue that RFP, and staff is working to get that done as soon as possible. That concludes my reports. If you have any questions.
I have a question. The HAB advisory change is not just Lake Anna, that's statewide change, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions or reports? Any other committee reports? All right. Board appointments, I don't believe we have any board appointments. I don't have any. County Administrator's report?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board, most of the items that would be on my report have been discussed under other items which are on the agenda. There's a raft of dates for tourism and related events in the county over the coming months, so I'd encourage you to take a close look at those. A couple of them are coming up this weekend. There's an Autism Awareness Festival for the Sheriff's Office and also Jack Jewett Day at Southern Revere, so please share that with your constituents. Also, I draw your attention, I shared this with the board via email, a notice that I got, a public notice for 605 Villages reissuance of a discharge permit. There were a couple of questions and comments I got on that, so I'd encourage you to review that permit or that public notice closely. Again, it's on page 44 of my report. If there's any response you'd like to make from the county standpoint, let me know. I'd be happy to help. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll move on to public hearings. The first is an ordinance approving proposed amendments to Chapter 86 Land Development Regulations, Article 2, Zoning Ordinance and Maps, Retail Sale of Controlled Substances. Mr. Kuhn.
Members of the board, starting on packet page 60, you will see the resolution for approving updates to several items in the zoning code. What this does is establishes an ability to have legitimate medical facilities, whether it's inpatient or outpatient care, to be allowed by right. And then if there were individuals that wanted to sell recreational controlled substances that did not have a DEA license or a professional physicians that help lead the facility, they would need to obtain a CUP. I'll stand ready to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Coon? I just want to get a clarification, and you just said it, I just want to say it again. So the original version of this that came out of the Planning Commission, then went back to the Planning Commission, was much tighter. But this would not impact an urgent care facility, a pharmacy, because they have a DEA license or operating under Virginia Department of Health and that sort of thing, correct?
Correct. If they have an active DEA license and they had a licensed physician in the state that operate and manage the facility, they wouldn't need to obtain a CUP.
Yes,
It'd be
sir.
by
Thank-
right.
Thank you. Just want to get clarification.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would wish to speak on this proposed amendment? Yes, sir. Come to the microphone, state your name, your voting district. You'll have 3 minutes. I'll give you a 15-second warning.
Thank you. My name is Bridge Hamilton, and I'm from the Mineral District. And I just wanted to come up here and show my support for this. And I'm excited to see the town of Louisa move with the state on this and all that. So I just wanted to show my support and let you know that I, like this. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would wish to address the board? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question
Yes.
before we make a motion. Does this affect any existing businesses in the county right now? Or would it? I mean, I've read this and
They're grandfathered in, isn't that the case?
Correct. If it would affect them, they may end up becoming a non-conforming use. But I don't know of any that this would impact, because all that are current
non-conforming use.
legally. Correct. But I don't know of any that this would affect that are selling controlled substances that don't have a DEA license or licensed physician.
Move approve.
second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve this ordinance amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next up, well, Mr. Coon, you get a break. Next up is public hearing ordinance approving proposed amendments to Chapter 86 Land Development Regulations, Article 1, General Provisions, Article 2, Zoning Ordinance and Maps, Article 3, Subdivision, Article 4, Supplementary Regulations, and Article 5, Signs. Mrs. Buckler.
Good evening, Chairman Adams and members of the board. This item is a public hearing on proposed amendments to Chapter 86 Land Development Regulations and what staff is calling Phase 3. The amendments are summarized in staff's memo on pages 71 through 73 in the board's packet and relate to the following areas of the ordinance. Definitions, short-term rental of a dwelling, yard regulations in the agricultural zoning districts, minimum road frontage requirements in the residential districts, subdivisions, shoreline regulations, telecommunications regulations, and the sign regulations. There are several exhibits related to the proposed amendments that have been provided in the board's packet on pages 91 through 99 for the board's information. Also provided is a copy of the existing interim road maintenance agreement that is used for new subdivisions, and that is on packet page 100. And there is a draft performance agreement that begins on packet page 105, and this agreement would require review by the county attorney with possible edits prior to use. Amendments related to emergency shelters and religious assembly were removed from this packet of amendments for additional discussion by the Planning Commission. And that concludes staff's report. We're prepared to answer any questions. And in addition, Mr. Martinez with Alteris Technology is also present to respond to any questions the board may have regarding the proposed amendments to the telecommunications regulations.
Anyone have any questions for Mrs. Buckler? I have one.
Sir.
So number 8, the sign regulation, and we've had some discussions about that with the brightness and the lumens and nighttime interfering with driving. So if we change this, will that impact existing signage?
The way we have proposed the definition of electronic message signs, Patricia may need to weigh in on whether we can do that. It would be retroactive, and they would have a certain amount of time to come into compliance with those regulations. But we have not talked about at the Planning Commission meeting whether that was something that could be done to make the existing signs come into compliance.
So would that also be complaint-based? I mean, if we make the change, they wouldn't know they were out of compliance unless there was a complaint, and, okay, that answers my question.
Correct.
Yes, sir?
When we were going through this, one of the things that I brought up was the signs that are currently in front of TJ and the high school, are they in compliance, or would they not be in compliance? Because those are pretty bright signs, so
We do not have an answer to whether they would be in compliance with the proposed regulations because we do not have the tool yet to measure them. I did reach out to the school about the message interval, the change interval, but I have not received a response back to that question yet.
I guess my next question then would be, would they be grandfathered because they are already there exist?
Again, that would depend on whether we could legally require the existing signs to meet the requirements, and if we received a complaint about the brightness to enforce it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
If it's a safety issue, though, I kind of feel like grandfathering it, if there's a safety issue with the brightness, could, not, I understand grandfathering the sign, but maybe grandfathering the level of brightness, and are we going to be getting detection things, items, I don't know, what, like we can detect sound
That
and,
is the proposal
it
to
is.
purchase.
yeah, it's in there to purchase it, yes, okay.
Right.
Well, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is.
If they're not if they're grandfathered, because
I agree.
the signs that are in existence is what brought this about. Mm-hmm. So that it would look like that it would be, hopefully, it would be retroactive. And then they would be given, I would assume, a reasonable amount of time to come into compliance,
agree.
right?
Right.
Yeah. I tell you all the time, I'm not the brightest bulb in the pack.
But we are talking about bright bulbs right now, so.
That's what I'm saying. But I'm a country boy. But I tell you, sometime now, we get a little carried away with stuff. And I understand the brightness and all that. But, for example, I don't think nobody at this table live in front of a brighter sign than I do.
That's a county sign, too.
Yeah.
Well, it's the school sign.
Moss knuckle sign flashing my bedroom all the time. And I've learned how to go to sleep with it. But what I'm saying, people raise money at those schools to get those signs. I think if it happens, we need to grandfather that. I really do. And I just be honest, I don't know. I haven't heard personally anybody run the ditch because it came up on the sign bright and made them run in the ditch. But normally most localities exempt schools when they do like football signs, scoreboards, things of that nature. So if that happens, without exemption, I can't support that part.
Mr. Burrow.
The reason I had asked that question, even at the planning commission level, was because, I drive by those signs regularly, and I don't see anything about them that is going to make me run off the road or anything like that. So I was trying to get a gauge as to what brightness of sign or, exactly what is it that is a danger. Now, if you drive by anything and you take your eyes off the road, it could be a cow in the field or what have you. I mean, anything could conceivably be a distraction and, may cause a wreck. But I haven't seen anything with the signs that we have in front of the schools. I just don't see anything that warrants them having to redo those signs.
Well, the schools may not be the issue. I
don't think
the I can take you by 2 or 3. And unfortunately, most of the ones that I get complaints on or that are really bad in the area I drive are churches. Are church signs that are really, really bright. I mean, bright enough at night that it's almost like somebody with headlights. So I don't know that we've identified any yet, but that would be the process if we change this ordinance, that if there was a complaint, we would determine whether they fall in line with the new ordinance, correct?
Right. There's other language in the ordinance that talks about complying with dark sky lighting standards, and also if the signs present a safety hazard. The Community Development Department did send out 7 letters to existing locations for electronic message signs. Excuse me, we've heard back from 4 of the 7, and asking that they show compliance with dark sky lighting standards. One has submitted information from the sign company. One church came in and said, we turned theirs down. We've driven by it, and it is a lot less bright at night than it was. So we are getting responses to those letters. We're also helping a couple of those come into compliance by getting the proper sign permits for the signs.
Mr. Goodwin?
Ms.
Well,
Jones
I
first.
just want to say, I don't believe we have any problems with the schools, but I do believe with churches, and I know I can identify 2 churches in Zions. One that was on Route 15, it was so bright, you wanted to wear sunglasses or do this. They've since pretty much turned theirs off. That was a big complaint one. And then there was another one that I politely, and this is when they first put it in years ago, it was shining into my home and so bright and everywhere. They turned theirs down when we were like, whoa, that's so bright, great sign, but turned it down. So I do think that we do have some churches that, and some locations that have been identified as safety hazards that we do need to.
Mr. Goodwin?
We're certainly sensitive to Mr. Barnes' concerns, and I mean, my humble suggestion, I mean, staff went around the horn on the signs, maybe more than some other parts of this. Brightness, a little bit subjective, different ways to measure it, still a science that's evolving a little bit from what we've read on it, and maybe what I might humbly suggest, I mean, to address Mr. Barnes' concern, I mean, we have a fantastic relationship with the schools. The board knows we're not going to try to come down heavy-handed on somebody. Maybe we put the regulations in place. Let's see how this works with the new equipment based on the research we've done. And if it looks like the bar is too low or too high, however you want to look at it, then we can come back and look at lessening it, and certainly working with, I mean, to the example of Moss Knuckles, I mean, we go to the schools and say, listen, I mean, it's reading this on the meter. Does your sign have the ability to go down? No, it doesn't. Okay, how can we work together on this? Or we're going to have to get a list of the ones that need to be grandfathered or look at a different way. But I think maybe the best way to figure that out would be to give it a try through these tighter restrictions, and we would certainly be very sensitive about them. Just my humble thought.
And also in my case, they were there before I was.
Oh, well, before we move off of signs, I will say this. So I've had 3 complaints in the mineral district. One was a church, 2 were commercial properties. All the signs have been put in within the last 3 years. I actually just went by and talked to the people. At least the new ones, and I don't know exactly how they work, they do have the ability to dim them, because they all dim them, and they're no longer an issue. Right. So that is a consideration.
My guess is that most people will want to be a good neighbor. I mean, one of them was in our district, and it was really, really bright, and I think maybe they may have toned that one down some too, but I don't think they realize because they're not there, most of them are not there at night.
I don't think they know. Most commercial businesses are not there at night when their sign is. You had something else?
I do. Ms. Buckler, the interim road maintenance agreement for subdivisions with internal streets designated for acceptance into the state secondary road system. This looks like a pretty benign agreement until you get to number 6, where it talks about snow removal, about when you accumulate 4 inches of snow and you got to come in and do this and do that. I want to know why we care. I mean, other than that, we're just putting, it's your road, it's your maintenance, we're not putting school buses, there's no mail service. Why do we care about how much the snow accumulates on somebody's private road and regulate how, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but maybe it just came from the planning commission, maybe they cared more.
This is the road maintenance agreement that's been in use since 2014, 2015. The snow removal is in the subdivision ordinance, and I believe the inches of
But
snow.
it's not in, it's a private road. I mean, we don't, why should we care if they remove the snow? The school buses aren't going down, the mail truck's not going down.
VDOT's not going down.
VDOT's not
It's
going
that
down.
road.
I mean, it's no different than my driveway. I mean, you're not regulating the snow clearing in my driveway. It just seems unique and strange in a benign document that's pretty benign.
I mean, we can certainly take it out of the interim road maintenance agreement. I believe the county attorney at the time just took the language straight from the ordinance and put it into.
I would propose a period after, in addition, the landowner will maintain the roads. 2 hours after dawn, you can't do this, and I'm like, who's going to enforce that?
That is true. Who is going to
Nobody.
enforce it?
Becomes the 6 inches of snow plow should commence in 6 hours after the snow has ceased falling. I mean, come on.
That is exactly what is written in the ordinance.
I get it, it just doesn't, I mean,
You want to change the ordinance as well, I guess would be the question.
I mean, is it for private roads? Is that for private subdivision roads in the ordinance, Tom? Was that private subdivision roads?
Private- It is for private roads. This is the private road
Well,
language.
I get
We
it, but
use
how,
it for-
why do you care if somebody does that on their private road?
A board at some point must have, so.
I, for one, do not care, so I would be for striking, because I think it is ridiculous to have something in there that nobody's going to enforce, because when it snows 6 inches, I'm not going to go peruse the subdivision roads to see, I'm going to sit at home and put a piece of wood on the stove and drink a cup of coffee.
Tony, what page are you?
It's on page 100, and it's in number 6 at the bottom, and it goes to the top of 107, 101.
At the risk of Linda disagreeing, and she is definitely the expert in the room, I don't think we feel strongly about restating something that's already in the ordinance, so we might be fine with taking it, or, yeah, we might be fine with taking out of the road maintenance agreements since it's already stated in the ordinance, and leave it up to the board if they want staff to consider a change.
I would consider the ordinance, getting out of the ordinance too, but that's just me. I mean, this agreement just seems, the rest of it's pretty benign. The landowner understands that the school bus service is not provided to Louisiana County School Division along private roads, lanes, or streets.
Yep.
There's benign, and then you get into, if it starts snowing, it gets more than 4 inches, and you must come, and you can't do it after dark, and you can't do it before dawn, and you gotta be, but 6 inches of snows, you gotta start. It's just doesn't, it's strange in the middle of the document.
Could this have been put in there because of our school systems? Because we're getting cars, I'm looking at Mr. Barnes, because we are getting students to the main roads and having them cleared? Could this have been sitting there from way back with the schools or something? When it snows, just getting the roads.
We ain't going down
back?
private road.
Yeah, I know
What
you guys
Rachel-
don't go down it.
What
but
Rachel is saying is if
Getting
you
the
don't
kids
have
down
your,
the private road
Oh,
to the
they can't
public,
get
to
'em
the
to the
school
bus.
bus.
Can't get them to the bus if all of our private roads, but I don't know if we've ever enforced it.
I'm gonna tell you, if
but
there's
just
6
a
inches
thought.
of snow, has been
going to
my
school. We ain't
thought.
in
If there's a
school.
half inch of
I
snow on
agree,
the
there's no
road,
school.
we're not going to school.
Well, to Mr. Williams's point, go back to the ordinance, which is the root of all of this.
Shouldn't be in there either.
Who enforces that?
Nobody. We're
I
gonna
mean,
have a
nobody,
snow
right?
enforcement
Nobody.
officer.
I mean, we don't have a snow enforcement code officer, right? 6 inches of snow, we get schools closed, county buildings closed, Louisa's closed. I mean, I think that it's a good point. I mean, it's just one of those things that's in the code that we don't do. So you've amended this, and I think.
I'm proposing that, we haven't had
Propose
public
amendment
hearing,
here,
but
and
I
I think
propose
the
putting a
other-
period after the word
And
roads.
unless the board has a concern, that we would look at about amending the ordinance to do this as well,
To match.
to match, yes.
He said page 106, what page?
100.
Number 6 on 100.
Number
I
6
actually
on
have it
page
on
Number
page
6 on
98 on mine.
We would
must
be
have
able
old
to
copies.
address
Have a
the
different book.
road
Hold on,
maintenance
hold on.
agreement, but taking it out of the ordinance, we're gonna have to go back to planning commission to
I
have
knew
the
that
public
would have to
hearing,
happen.
because
Yeah.
that wasn't advertised or discussed.
Yeah.
So we can add that on the next, not this next planning commission,
Go
but,
back to planning commission.
the July planning commission agenda, and we can add that on there, but we can't deal with it tonight.
On what?
The ordinance
Oh,
regarding.
yeah,
we
I
know,
understand the ordinance.
But we can
pulled
strike
that
it
here
from here.
tonight.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I said. Yes, sir.
Mrs. Buckler?
Yes, sir.
Number 5, page 70, number 5 subdivision plat requirements and standards.
Page 70?
Yes, sir.
Uh-oh. I don't have that.
And mine's messed
Has
up too.
that's been changed, Mr. Barlow?
What's the section number? It's not 70 in our book.
No.
Must have an old book.
It's
Article what?
purpose, definitions, amendment,
Definitions?
well, and then it's after definitions, update short-term rental of dwellings. And then it gets into numbers. So 1 is definition, 2 is update short-term rentals, 3, this
I
is
don't have
5.
Is it in the short-term rental thing?
77.
No, it's in
77.
Look at 77.
County of Louisa memorandum.
This is in the memo from staff to the board. I've got it on page 71 and 72 in the packet.
Yeah, mine's on 70, but anyway. So number 5, and Mr. Barlow probably is the one that needs to,
Subdivision plat requirements and standards?
correct.
Right here.
Is that what's there to take away, Mr. Barlow had a problem with VDOT? What, did you have to put a stamp on the plans, Tommy, for VDOT to sign off? Is that what this is doing? Is taking that requirement away?
There was an original amendment that was passed that removed VDOT from all reviews and approvals, but after further discussions with VDOT, we've amended the language that we've talked about at the Planning Commission meeting to say an engineer or surveyor licensed in the state of Virginia, which would also include VDOT reviewers of road plans if they are sent to VDOT. So we amended the language that would cover both a third-party reviewer or VDOT engineers.
Because VDOT would be a licensed engineer probably.
Correct.
Where is this part at?
It's in the staff, it's either on page 70 or 72.
It seems that all of our books
Number
are
5.
different numbered, Tommy.
Looking at the electronic version, and
He's the only one that uses that stuff.
We'll give them one of the books to look at. It's
It's-
on,
it's-
it's number 5.
It's section 86.567.
So while Mr. Barrows, can I go ahead and ask my second and last question? Number 6 underneath that, plat approvals. Is that what Mr. Williams and Mr. Barlow worked on, where we had that money, the monies from developers of subdivisions, and they never turned the roads into state roads? Is that what this is doing?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
You talking about number 6?
Number 6.
well, I can tell you, number 6, at one time, we had, if they were slated to go state spec roads, built to state standards, and the idea was that they would be turned over to VDOT, then we didn't have this language in there. So what happened, some of these roads that were approved and even approved by VDOT weren't ever taken in.
Right.
And there was no road maintenance agreement or anything else. So the language was added until such time as it is taken in. That
Considered to be private.
exactly, in other
Just the
words,
document that I just spoke to, I think. Is that right?
Correct. So what we've done is amended the ordinance to not only require that language on private road subdivisions or private lanes,
Public
but
ones,
that
too.
language would also be required on any new subdivision with an internal road to indicate that that road is private until it has been accepted by VDOT.
And while it's private, do not expect school bus, do not expect U.S. mail, and do not expect snow clearing in a timely manner.
Or maintenance.
Or maintenance of any kind.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow.
Anybody else?
I still have a couple of questions about this, I think. Y'all go ahead, I'm reading. We talked about all of this before, and my concern is private lanes be used. All right, maybe you can simply answer the question. In this item number 5, does this go to VDOT now for review? I guess it's number 5.
Yes.
Why is that the case?
Yeah.
In other words, if they're not gonna review, they're not gonna come out, and what has happened, as I told y'all before, they refuse to come out on site until a building permit, an entrance permit is applied for. They will not, and according to them, they make recommendations, they will not sign off on the plat. So, when I left this, I thought we were removing their review and approval from the subdivision plat. Because number one, they won't review it, they won't approve it, and then, in other words, we had a note on the plat that said to the prospective buyer that the entrance permits or the approvals for the entrances would be required at the time, or would be approved at the time the entrance permit is applied for and approved. That's a statement on the plat. And then that took it so that you did not have to go, the plats, go to VDOT, sit down there for 45 days, and they wouldn't review or approve it. So why are we gonna send it to them? So now, has that changed to where it's now going to VDOT?
So the change was made after, this recommended change was made after the first amendment was adopted by the board to remove VDOT from the review, and we were contacted by the developer who talked to VDOT and were told that they were reviewing road plans, and that it was, the developer had indicated to the county staff that it was gonna cost in excess of $50,000 for them to hire a third-party plan reviewer for the inspections and the certification at the end. County staff met with VDOT representatives who indicated to our office and administration that they were reviewing the road. They would review road plans. They don't give approvals, and this is consistent across the state from other localities that we've talked to. For plats, they provide a concurrence letter, meaning that they reviewed it, and they don't just review for entrance locations. There are other things that they review on subdivision plats, and I believe they sent that list to Mr. Perry.
Turning radiuses, pavement detail sections, blah, 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 blah.
Existing
That it
easements
generally
and-
conforms with VDOT standards.
Right.
And there's nothing out of the ordinary.
So if I'm looking at number 5 here, I think what number 5 says, what I see, Tommy, is that the plan review is by a licensed engineer, could be VDOT, could be private if you wanted to, and it requires submittal of a performance agreement, and you're going to outline the amount of time. And while this is happening, the county takes no responsibility, and you will maintain that this is a private lane. And then, if it gets put over in there, then that's fine. It becomes public, and if it doesn't, it will remain private. And the county, that's all number 5 is doing right here, I think.
I think we're talking about two completely different things.
I think we are, but I think number 5 just addresses that. I don't see where it's anywhere else, do you? I mean, you got the disclosure in number 6 on the plat approval, saying it's,
Hey, Mr. Chairman, excuse me. Do you want to hold a public hearing if we can't clear it up, come back with it?
Well,
It'd be in this-
I'd like to get this part cleared up, because we went through the problem that we were having. And
I
think-
agree with you.
I think part of the problem is, on one term, you're talking about VDOT looking at road plans. when you have,
Approval of plans.
Yeah.
And entrance permits, approvals.
and when we talked about the third party type scenario,
It's 5 and 6 right there.
So number 5 and number 6 are giving you heartburn?
Well, I don't know
well,
that
now
5
I'm
and
not
6
sure
are,
about the rest of it.
I'm not sure if 5 and 6 are giving heartburn. The question is, I think your question is, are we still sending to VDOT for preliminary approval?
Exactly.
That's the scope of his question.
Well-
And the answer I heard you say is, we're sending it as a courtesy, but it really means nothing.
No,
On subdivision plats, we receive concurrence letters from VDOT.
Which means nothing.
On road plans, I don't think we've actually gotten anything on a final set of road plans yet, since all of the changes were made. And on site plans, the ordinance was amended that they were sent for review only and not approval. For site plans, VDOT approval was removed, but it was set for review only.
So, just to try to move this along, and I just want to make sure Mr. Barlow's questions are answered.
well, they're not.
So,
And that is what I explained. If you've got a 4 or 5 lot subdivision, say it doesn't even have a road, and it's got entrances,
See,
that's all.
it's got private entrances.
A private entrance, that's all that they got to have on it. We have sent them to VDOT for review. They sit down there for 45 days or longer. And then you get no comments, or what they actually did was they sent comments and moved the driveways to places where one had a power pole sitting in the middle of it. Another one had a 5-foot cut. They had not been out on the ground. They send the comments back, and understandably, I understand why London, if you get comments back from VDOT, they're the ones, they're not comments, they're what you gotta do. And what I'm saying is, we have now these, I'm not talking about road plans, I'm talking about simple entrances. They will not approve the plat, they won't sign off on it, they will not review it. What has been done in the past, they would come out, look at your entrances and say, yeah, I think that'll work, go ahead with it. Now they refuse to do that, so you have to do it. It goes to VDOT, they make comments or don't make comments, and then you don't know whether they're gonna approve it or not. And then they tell you, well, we're not gonna approve it until the time the entrance permit is applied for.
Yeah.
So why have them as part of that? And that's the reason I brought this up. And I thought we had language, the last stuff I had read. I didn't know about new meetings with VDOT that now says they were reviewing it. I'm certainly not gonna vote for it the way it is. I think it doesn't address the very reason that I brought this part of it forward.
so let me ask this question. So this ordinance to approve these amendments, so number 5 is the one that doesn't address your concern?
I don't think that's true.
Or
I
is it
think it's
5
number
or
6,
6?
it's about the
I don't know
plats.
what's in here that doesn't address it. I
Well,
need to go back and
I'm
read
talking
it
about
again.
here and here. The rest of it doesn't have anything to do with subdivisions. The rest of it has things to do with signs and telecommunications. What I'm trying to ask is, after we have the public hearing, do you want to strike these 2 so that we don't do anything and come back and look at this
Or you
later?
could table it, sir.
We can table it, or we can strike those 2.
I would say, at this point, I would say table it until I've had a chance to go through,
The whole
Yeah.
gamut.
see what else is in here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we can also just address this by staff including language that we won't send the plat reviews to VDOT for approval or concurrence or review in any way, shape, or form.
Well, we could do that, but I think what he's saying, look at the last sentence, number 6, Tommy. It says, plats will also be required to include a note that entrance permits must be obtained from VDOT for access to each lot on the subdivision plat. That's really the sentence that you care about. Is that
Right.
it? Is that it? So a simple note that says that that you got to get your own entrance permit. And if you want to put a note in here somewhere that subdivision plats will not be required to go to VDOT for approval, we can certainly add that quick language in there.
That's what I mean, in other words, that note is fine, but what the question I asked was, are these plats that, and I'm not talking about road plan approvals.
I think it got commingled with road plan approvals. I think that was
Well,
where the
then-
conversation got
That's
commingled.
the reason I said we're talking about two different things.
Yeah.
But in other words, I don't want to see things go to VDOT for approval that they're not going to,
Yeah,
they're not going to
it don't
review or
make sense.
approve.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
And we talked about that a long time ago. I think the whole board agreed, or most of the board agreed anyway, that that was ridiculous.
Is this an easy fix with language tonight, or should we open the public hearing, hold the public hearing?
I think the language is squared away, and I think this is more of a process that we will take back and make sure community development uses as we move forward, not sending those items to VDOT. I don't think it needs to be in the specific ordinance,
I
personally.
think
Mr. Chairman?
What do you think, Mr.
what
Brown?
I would like to do is, you can have the public hearing and then table it until we've had a chance to look through this thing.
A friend of mine suggested that a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
And
I
do
wanted- I
that.
wanted two friends. Yes, sir.
I don't want to table the whole thing. I would definitely want to, have staff look at the, 5 and 6 or whatever's giving heartburn. Because, some of these things need to move forward. They've worked on them a long time. And there's no, we've had time to look at this, So there is that. But I would also say that, Mrs. Buckler, would it be a possibility to have VDOT actually give Mr. Supervisor Barlow some type of statement that they are going to look at these things or they're not going to look at these
Well, I
things?
think they did. The Attorney General gave opinion, they don't have to look at them, they're not going to.
He's asked this question before
To the VDOT guy.
to the VDOT guy.
All right, it just seems like I got, Ms. Buckler said something about VDOT looking at the things, and then, Supervisor Barlow has had a different messaging from VDOT. So for us to make an informed decision, we really need to know where VDOT is.
I think that's part of the. It's a
Great question. That's a good question.
They right down here on the side, Davis Highway on the right.
Yeah, see if you can get anything from it. But part of the problem is you're looking at road plans as opposed
Yeah,
to just.
two different questions. Yeah. And we were
All
commingling
right,
them.
we're not going to, let's let Mrs. Buckler sit down.
Good job, Linda.
Let me open the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board on this? I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the board. Let me just state a couple things. I think these are the options that we have. We can table the whole thing, get language that's suitable that on this. We can take 5 and 6 out and table that
I
and
don't
pass
think
the
you can table
rest.
part of it, sir.
Or we can do whatever we want to do.
I don't think you can table part of the motion. I
Yeah,
think it's
yeah,
all
you
or none.
can, because it's all different chapters in it.
We
You
got
might
a
want to ask your
motion
attorney
ready.
about that one.
We got a motion ready.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table the whole thing.
Second.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion
So moved.
passes.
I was in opposition.
6 to 1,
Yeah.
6 to 1. All right.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Meeting